Hi! So in last week's video, some of you mentioned that I didn't do a proper job comparing my Samsung Galaxy S24's camera to my, well, full frame camera, and well, this time around I'll be comparing RAW versus RAW, because this also shoots RAW. So let's first take a photo with the full frame. Now let's take a photo with this guy. Okay, export RAW. Like this, I'm gonna leave all the settings as they are and just take a photo. So this took a DJI RAW photo, 16-bit linear, and I'm actually quite curious to see how comparable this is to, well, something like this. So we're back in the studio. I've downloaded both photographs from the camera and my smartphone, and here they are. This is the camera photo and this is the smartphone photo. Now, before we get into this, I have to mention that the smartphone actually made a bigger file size because it's a 50 megapixel image and the camera's image is only 33 megapixels. So if I show you, this right here is from the Sony camera and it's 67 megabytes, and this is from my Samsung S24 and it's like a 93 megabyte file size, which is ridiculous, I mean, for a smartphone. But let's dive into the edit. Well, first of all, you can see that the camera is a 3:2 aspect ratio and the image is a bit crooked because I did a lousy job. And the smartphone is a 4:3 aspect ratio, and the resolutions from both of these are, well, here, 8000 times 6000 and 7000 times 4000, which is quite a big difference in resolution. So first of all, I'm going to crop and rotate my camera image to kind of match the same framing as I had with the smartphone, but this way I will be losing more resolution and the detail and the sharpness. But hey, I'm still betting on the camera, so let's first do this. So I'll choose a 4:3. Okay, there we go. I think I've matched the images quite good, actually. Now the camera image now is just like almost 5000 times 3600, which is like almost half the resolution now. And that's going to play some role in this comparison. But hey, I'm betting on the camera. So let's select both of these and I'm going to apply my very special preset, which I have over here called Middle. Now what this does, it separates the sky and the subject, it enhances the sky, it enhances the subject with some clarity and decays and shadows and whites. So I'm not replacing anything in the image, I'm just kind of enhancing them. So you can see here the results. The sky is now much more pronounced and the subject is a tiny bit brighter. But as with every preset, we have to tweak them. So let's first tweak one and then the other very quickly. Okay, now I've used auto color adjustments in both of these images, and here you can see the difference in the color science. Now, I don't find this to be very important because you can always change colors in your photographs when you're editing them. But this is like the difference that Lightroom does if you choose auto color adjustments. I'll try to match them a bit more. With some tweaking, I think this is as close as I can bring them. It doesn't matter, as I said, for the colors. We're looking at the details, the sharpness, the contrasts, and just like the overall look of the image. So let's start zooming in. So on my camera, I was focusing on this well over here, and well, here everything's going to be in focus because this is a 5.4 millimeter focal length, which means that everything's always in focus. And this here is a 17 millimeter focal length, which means that some things are not going to be in focus away from where I was actually focusing. Also notice that I shot with an f11 aperture, and here we have an f1.8. This is why the shutter speed is much faster, and here is just 1/80th of a second. Now the reason why I shot with f11 is so that I get this sun star over here, which makes the image look prettier, and I cannot do that on my smartphone. So just one thing that you can do on a camera and not on a smartphone. Plus with f11, I got, well, most of the scene in focus. So let's zoom in right over here. Okay, and right from the start, we can see that, well, there's just more contrast and more detail in the camera shot versus the smartphone. And if I go up here where we have these tiles, I can actually see, yeah, I mean, this is just mushy. You know, there's no detail here, and here we have nice detail. And here behind in the trees as well, I mean, hardly comparable. Now, if I zoom here into the trees on this side, you can see how much more in focus this image is. It's also way over sharpened, like this is way too sharp. And this is, well, it's actually not in focus, and I like the fall off between the highlights and the shadows more. But what I can do is I can apply some digital sharpness to my camera shot to kind of match the, you know, smartphone shot. So let's just add sharpening. Like, I never do this in my photography. This is way too much, but that's as far as I'm willing to go. So now let's compare these two photographs. So here we have now like the over sharpened, in my opinion, camera shot, and it's, I mean, I don't know, it looks better. This one looks sharper, but this one looks just more natural, you know? The transition between the bright areas all the way into the dark areas, there's just so much more shades of gray. And here, for instance, we have just the really bright areas and then black. So it's like the whites and the blacks. There's no shadows, there's no highlights. Everything is just very contrasty. And even here on this wooden tiles here on this house, you can see that on a smartphone, there's hardly any detail. Now for the last part, let's look at the grass. So I'm going to zoom right here where this edge is, and yeah, even though this is like half of the resolution compared to the smartphone, it still looks nicer and kind of sharper, or nicely sharper compared to a smartphone. This is way too sharp. And for a 50 megapixel image, I mean, there should be so much more detail here compared to my camera. I mean, this looks nice, this looks bad. So there you have it. I mean, this is why I think that you can never really match a smartphone to a big professional camera, even though if you shoot RAW. Now, RAW on the smartphone does look better than what the smartphone does automatically, but it's still hardly comparable to a professional camera. And like I said in the last video, if you turn up into a professional photo shoot with this, yeah, people are really not going to take you seriously. I mean, come on. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And well, I'll see you in last week's video in case you've missed it, or just, you know, maybe watch this video over here. Yeah, anyway, I'll see you in... Bye-bye.